Hello, and Relic Jones is back once again. Yeah, we're just recording and recording and recording. This is a episode of Yarn and Yore. I finally decided a name for it. Yarn and Yore. Mostly we're talking about D&D, but sometimes we'll go on some other side tangents. And we're back with the adventures of Stella, the female dragonborn, and Dark Shantae, the very overweight dwarf warlord. So this is bad for me. I do not remember how it started. I do not remember how they got sent into this particular cave. The first time they were in a cave. The second time, the dungeon master died. That was fun. Dungeon master died, and they were in a tavern. This time they're back in a cave, dealing with more dragon stuff, because the subplot of this entire arc was something is wrong with the dragons. I kind of did, I guess, Horde of the Dragon Queen years before Horde of the Dragon Queen, but I mean, it's Dungeons and Dragons. It was a generic way to put a bunch of dragons in the adventure, in a really well thought out Dungeons and Dragon adventure. I don't think there should be dragons every other step. I mean, these are very powerful, very thought-provoking creatures with their own motivations, and it's a little, yeah, I don't put many, and my point was the dragons are awakening and they're causing trouble, and I had that made up race called the Night Loft, and I don't think he got brought up in this. The Night Loft, which are kind of like Mothman, like thin, spindly moth creatures with psionic abilities that can cause like hallucinations and stuff like that. Watch the first video for more explanation on this. So they're in this cave exploring. I guess they heard there was a dragon in here, trying to figure out what the dragon's plot is. And so they go through the cave. They go through several layers of the cave, and there seems to be not much going on. It's just a normal cave. And then I guess the first thing that I fully remember, I don't remember many notes here. Yikes. The stuff on their inventory, because another subplot the characters wanted to be was becoming Dracoliches. Like, I'm seeing fingers, flesh, dragon teeth. That's Dark Shantae's thing. Spinal cords. I think I don't remember what adventure he got those from. If you're a dungeon master, you probably... Oh man, that also reminds me of a whole different campaign. We'll talk about that later. Yikes. Hopefully I remember where that campaign splat sheet is, but yikes. As a dungeon master, have you ever looked over player sheets that you have and just were scared about what they had in their inventory? What it talked about the people that you deal with outside of the game on a day-to-day basis? That's what just happened to me. So, okay, regather myself, back to the adventure. They go through this cave, and they eventually go to this room that has it's like a storage room. It kind of has like a central altar. It's held up by 4 pillars, but it's covered in blood in cages. And in the middle of the room, they see what looks like a minotaur. Actually, I'll go get some miniatures to help you think about this particular adventure. And well, we'll fill up some time. My big old box of miniatures. Because at the time I did have this miniature. Killing some time. Apparently YouTube likes long videos, and you don't have to physically watch this. You can have it in the background. Which I do often with D&D stories. Just as long as it shows that you're watching it, it's perfectly fine. You can go do your chores or whatever. I am the Bob Ross of storytelling, I guess. So we had this guy. There's a minotaur, and he's looking around, and he seems very confused or lost. Maybe he's lost in the labyrinth. Or if you remember my first D&D campaign, the labyrinth. I can't believe But yeah, there's a Minotaur, and this terrifies my player characters. They're talking to each other. It's like, man, that's pretty tough. We're gonna have to hit them hard, hit them quick. Which the way to really deal with Minotaurs, I've always heard, was to kite them. You hit them and then run away, hit them and run away, and stuff like that. Make them bleed out. But they're like, oh man, there's a Minotaur there, and I keep telling them, it's like, look alive. Things may not be like they assume. So as a good dungeon master, I'm warning them that they may be looking at the wrong things. And I think I eventually even told them what it was, and they're like, well, no, there has to be one. No. Sorry. So they go and they go full force. I think they spend some of their daily abilities to hit these guys. Trying to think what things like Warlord Strike, where Hammer and Anvil was dropped on them. Yeah, so Dark Shantae hits it. And yeah, it's not a little miniature like this. It is not the Minotaur that they thought. And this sounds kind of weird. It was a doppelganger, but I was looking into Pathfinder, and I'm looking at a Pathfinder book, and they show the doppelgangers as very humanoid, but their eyes are different. So I was like, okay, you just hit a female doppelganger, but the Dungeons and Dragons version is like this little like ET alien creature. So I was thinking it was a female doppelganger. So she has it's just a normal human with the ability to change shapeshift, and she was already weak, and your one hit kills her. So they hit this Minotaur, then all of a sudden this like 14-year-old girl hits the wall, and in a blood splatter. Like, oh man, what are they doing here? Why do they have doppelgangers? Why do they have cages for like people and stuff like that? Because they're like humanoid-sized cages. Then eventually they have to deal with, I think this alerts the guards of this particular base, and out comes some goblins, and they finish them off. So there's goblins capturing doppelgangers, and this doppelganger. So the whole idea was that the doppelganger took on the very powerful form to scare off any guards, and was trying to escape because she was like kidnapped from her family. And Dark Shantae is eventually just realizing like they can only shapeshift into things that they have already seen. So maybe there's a Minotaur somewhere in the labyrinth that we can go ahead and actually fight. So we should be very scared. And I probably should let them be uneasy. As a dungeon master, you want your player characters to be left uneasy, but making every adventure have an answer. If it's a super overpowered boss, you tell them that, like, maybe you should run away. Maybe not in those words, but consequences, if you will. But most things they should be able to deal with. Shouldn't overpower your people. So the Goblin guards come in, they deal with the Goblin guards, because at this point they're like level 3. Or level 2 or level 3. It consistently takes more and more experience for them to level up. And, well, just took them more experience to level up. So, they deal with the goblins, and then eventually, like, they go further into the particular labyrinth, and they find, like, wolves. Wolves started, like normal wolves, they start attacking from a particular doorway. They come out and they attack, and they eventually deal with the wolves. And then this entire real campaign, where this adventure kind of culminates in the idea that they walk into a particular room where the wolves came out of. They actually see a dire wolf immediately, like this huge hulking wolf. And on top of the dire wolf is a goblin riding the dire wolf. And it's not uncommon to have like goblins riding wolves and all that. But the room is made of steel and metal, and there's glass, and there's these like alchemy kits that they've never seen before. Like, they know what an alchemy kit, but it's the closest to they say. And they're dealing with this goblin scientist. And they eventually corner him, and he's a very cowardly person, even though he has the dire wolf. He's a very cowardly person. He's the kind of person, though, that he would have stuff like this. this little scientific test chamber sitting around, and it's just weird. It's out of place. Why is there a smart goblin? And I think he had like a knife in his head where he got stabbed, and that's what gave him super intelligence. Something wiring his brain got off, and he's this character that floats around in these campaigns, and currently he's enslaved by. He tells them, "Yeah, I'm currently like enslaved and forced to work for this blue dragon that's going around tearing up the place." And it's like, hey, can you help me out? And he's trying to wheel and deal with the party members. And these are like murder hobo party members. They go and just kill whatever they can. They just killed a little girl for no good reason. So it's like, oh no, we got to make a deal. And they were all this idea of getting like taking packs for people's souls. They thought it would help with the lich transformation, I guess. I don't know. So he's like, hey, just let me escape. I'll end up telling the dragon that you died here in the labs, and you destroyed the labs, you died in the labs, then I can escape. Well, if I get caught. So he's trying to wheel and deal. He tells them that this whole lab was the dragons are trying to relearn how they made Dragonborn. So that's why they have the shapeshifter. They think the shapeshifter could be manipulated to become a Dragonborn or help them create Dragonborns in their little laboratory. So just really interesting subplot going on here with this Goblin Scientist. But they're kind of not buying it, and they kind of want more stuff. I think they eventually get gold pieces, and to escape, eventually the Goblin like has a detonator. He's like, I'm going to start this detonator, and you better get out of this cave. And he like takes a potion of invisibility, hits the detonator, and leaves the room. And they're like looking for him with perception rolls. Man, where did he go? Where did he go? And alarms go off, I guess. And it's like, the base will self-destruct. Like incendiary grenades will go off and burn up anyone in the cave. Please escape. And they're like, okay, we don't have time to go find this goblin, this goblin scientist. We need to get out. And the exit is pretty close, and they exit out into a wilderness particular area. This, I believe it was more like a conifer forest. They hear an explosion, fire rains out of the cave, and they're actually outside of the cave. And let me see if I can find who had the best perception. I think Stella may have had the best perception. They're like, I'm going to look to see if I can find where this goblin scientist ran out. I think Stella, she didn't have perception, but she had like tracking, and she rolled good enough on the tracking. Then I think it was Dark Shantae was like, well, I'm going to perception to see if I can see this goblin scientist. I mean, he's in invisibility, but his invisibility wears off, and he gets like a natural 20. It's like, yeah, you find the goblin scientist out in the woods. If you try to escape, you try to kill him. They're really mad. And they're like, okay, we corner him, and they like eventually even bloody, like him and his dire wolf. It's like, okay, we're gonna make you talk. It's like, we want loot. I think this is where they get the gold. And he was like, okay, you spare me my life, because I wanted to keep this character. I like this NPC, this idea of a smart goblin in the universe. So they're like, okay, I'll make a deal with you, I'll make a deal. It's like, anything you can do to make us a lich, because we kind of want to be liches. Like, aren't you the good guys? Like, oh, aren't you the good guys? It's like, no, we want to be liches, man. It's like, I don't have that, but it's like, I see you like pets. This is my mistake. I give Dark Shantae the dire wolf. I'm sitting here thinking, I was like, well, they lost the Dungeon Master, which was going to be their third member, and it's a party of 2, and it's getting harder to balance character sheets with a party of 2. Here, you get the direwolf. So Shantae jumps on the direwolf. You are my pet. And then the goblin scientist is like, yes, you have to be his pet now. And I didn't give it much personality, and the direwolf is like, I am a pet. So, and the goblin is like, okay. He pops another magic potion to make him invisible and leaves. And that's where I'm going to leave you guys off. The party is currently Stella, the guard drake, which probably finished off all those goblins for them, did nothing. Like, the party did nothing, really. And a direwolf and Dark Shantae. So he has 2 pets, and Stella's just like, I'm happy to be here. Even though she's kind of on her own for most of the part. He uses his warlord abilities on his pets. So he's kind of like an animal tamer. So yeah, that was the Goblin Scientist for Yarn and Yore. Relly Jones, signing out.